All right, well, let's go through the headlines in Canada and around the world today. I'm going to start with CBC. Might as well begin with their state broadcaster. We're spending $1.4 billion a year. Let's see what news we get from them. This is a headline typical of the CBC. Carney and Smith want a new pipeline. So far, no company has stepped up to build it. None of the major pipeline companies have announced new projects in Western Canada. Okay, so here's a good example of media and half-truth. Carney doesn't want a pipeline. If he wanted a pipeline, we'd be on our way to a pipeline. Carney is doing what he does. He talks and doesn't act. Smith wants a pipeline. So why has no company stepped up? See, this is where they're running cover. This is where they're making the excuse. They're saying the same thing as Trudeau, just a different way, when they're saying there's no business case for it. Well, if Carney wanted a pipeline, he'd get rid of the No More Pipelines Act. He won't get rid of it. If Carney wanted a pipeline, he'd get rid of the tanker ban. He won't get rid of it. If Carney wanted a pipeline, he'd point out that the Indigenous community doesn't have a veto over pipelines. He won't do that. So no company will invest right now. But do you blame them? Of course they won't invest because they know it won't get built. So Carney's talking out of both sides of his mouth with that. And the CBC, though, that's the politics are politics. That's what they do. Fine. But when we have this expensive state broadcaster running cover for him, that's when we have a big problem because we can't get the real information. And people who unfortunately read that and look just at the surface of it, that's the news story we get. We're not going to get a pipeline, guys, because Carney doesn't want one. But he's going to try and blame the private market for it. Try not to let him. All right, a lot still on. I guess school is back in this year. Lots of school-related stories going on. And it's really showing the social agenda going on in Canada. The control battle. So in Alberta, we got the teachers looking to go on strike yet again, as usual. The line is always the same. So the Alberta Teachers Union, they don't like calling themselves a union. They say they're an association, just like the BC Teachers Union calls themselves a federation. They're unions, okay? They can strike. They're unions. They turned down an offer of, I believe it was 12 or 17% raise, 12, I think. And they were going to hire, the government committing to hire 3,000 more teachers. The union said, no, not good enough, and walked away from the table. The union's claiming it's over class sizes, but they turn away 3,000 more teachers. Let's face it, they want to line their pockets more. Teachers in Alberta make darn good money. You're there 11 years, you're making well over $100,000 a year. And despite what they always claim, they get summers off, Christmas holidays off, spring off, Arbor Day off, Ethel Merman's birthday off, whatever it is, they get days off. They're working less and less and less days, making a lot of money with a massive pension plan. Look, they got a very, very important job. I won't deny that. But for the way they complain about it, good Lord. What they are is liberal arts degrees holders that couldn't find work in there with their philosophy degree and such, and they upgraded to a teaching diploma so they could make good money. There's some brilliant, dedicated teachers out there, but a lot of them are just doing that. And they're always looking for more money. So here comes the strike holding parents hostage at school, gets rolling, and they'll put the squeeze on. The fake book ban, and that's tied in with the same activists, the same lefties. It's still making news because the UCP clarified what the difference is between pornographic images and classic books, but the media is still making it out that Danielle Smith's trying to control things and ban books and so on. The all Danielle bad all the time narrative, especially if you listen to talk radio, is really something else. While the school board plays dumb on this. There's also a lawsuit going on now with some activist groups over trying to keep it a secret for parents if their children are trying to transition to another gender when they're 11 years old in school and such. They're really trying to drive a wedge between parents and their children. They're trying to say the children cannot be trusted, or the parents cannot be trusted to, raise their own children, and the school and the activists must have that authority. Because that was one of the things brought in by Smith. The government was just no. If your kid's going to change their name and things like that, or try to, the parents have to be informed. Look, oh my Lord, there's abusive parents out there and everything. Well, that's a separate issue to deal with. But the school is there to be a bloody school, not to indulge kids on this fake non-binary crap that's going around that's a trend. And that's what it is, guys. It's not anti-trans stuff and everything. It's just being realistic. But she can't get a fair shake in the coverage no matter what. As well, and we got that, the Liberal government now federally is monitoring. This is a headline. Monitoring Alberta law banning trans athletes from female sports. See, read between the lines on the headline again. Banning trans athletes from female sports. No, it's banning men from female sports in school. That's what it is, not trans athletes. You can have your own trans games. You can do whatever you like. But if you weren't born female, you can't compete in female sports. Do we really want to see more boxing men beat the hell out of a woman? Is it really that entertaining? Is it good for women's sports? Is it good for their self-esteem? The best of all we saw, this denial of science, and this is our schools. The best was that American soccer team with the women who were hardcore left-wing women and talking about trans and the works and everything, and oh, we should allow. They played a 15-year-old boys high school team, the American national team of women, and they lost because men have a huge physical advantage. It's just the way it is, okay? But Smith is being demonized again because they got a law requiring female athletes to submit an attestation indicating what they were born as. It's not unreasonable, guys. It's sad that you have to make him attest to that because some born men are trying to get in on women's sports because they were substandard in their own gender, their own sex. But the coverage again on demonizing Smith on really is what common sense is about. So, we got that lawsuit going on to get between the schools and them. We've got the Liberal government monitoring. It'd be interesting to see, what are you going to do? In Alberta, like many European countries, are banning men from women's sports, particularly at the school level. What are you going to do about it, Liberal government? Interesting. The Ontario Labour Relations Board. This is an interesting one. Matt and Nicole Alexander, they're a pair of teachers. They were fired for refusing to celebrate sexual minority policies. And they've actually allowing the hearing to be held. It looked like they might not even be allowed to have a hearing into that. So Matt was suspended in April 2023 over social media posts, even though they weren't public, but somehow they got out. So he got suspended as a teacher, where I guess he was not nice to LGBTQ causes or something. We're not talking about crazy raving hate. We're just saying not agreeing with things. Nicole, the other one, was suspended after moving a pride poster from her kindergarten classroom door into a cabinet. Yeah, that's it. She got fired. Look, this is indoctrination, guys. They're there for reading, writing, arithmetic, sports, socializing, not this bloody, crazed agenda. I want tolerance. I want all those things, but the school shouldn't be in the middle of it. Teachers now are getting fired for not hanging a politically charged flag in a kindergarten class. Kindergarten! This is where the battles are going on. The activist battles are after your kids, guys. And I'm not one of those people saying everybody's a pedophile and all that crap. There's enough nutcases out there on the right saying that sort of crap. No, there's too many pedophiles in the world. There's no doubt. This isn't a grooming thing, but it is a bizarre agenda, and it's really disrupting Western society, and that's where it's coming from. Speaking of insane agendas, here we are in Alberta, getting to environment using emergency measures, right? So Mayor Gondek, those not familiar with it, Calgary's mayor, one of the most unpopular mayors in Calgary history in her first term. As soon as she got elected, she declared a climate emergency. She didn't campaign on any of that, and an $87 billion plan to deal with it. $87 billion in one city. Suddenly, 4 councillors are getting up and saying they want to pull that, climate emergency and rescind it and get it pulled out of there and everything. I agree with that, and I kind of agree with Gondek a little, though, where she said she's kind of making a point at them, saying, you guys had 4 years to bring this up, and you're waiting till right now. Yeah, because the municipal election's in a month. And only one of those 4 councillors actually voted against that climate emergency back when it first came. Politicians are allowed to change their minds. And, hey, I like seeing Gondek's bad policies exposed like this, but it's also exposing some of the opportunistic nature of some of these politicians, too. These civic elections, we got to watch them really closely this time around, guys. Hopefully we can do better. Provincially, this one's an interesting one to watch, and it's still 13 months away, is the Quebec Provincial election. So, Francois Legault, Quebec's premier right now, in polling from, I'm not sure which one, Angus Reid, has been found. They checked on the approval ratings for every premier. He's down to 22%. He is in trouble. 72% of Quebecers don't approve of his leadership. If an election's held looking at things sitting right now, the Parti Québécois will win the next government in Quebec. And they are platforming, they're running on holding a referendum on independence. This, if we get independence movements, it's already flaming up in Alberta. In Quebec, it had been quiet. It seems it's rare when both Alberta and Quebec have got it going at the same time. If both provinces are holding referendums on independence at the same time, kind of, or around the same period, this country is going to see some very interesting discussions about its viability as a nation. So we'll watch that closely. Bob Kinney was the most popular with 61% in Manitoba. People still really like him. He's still on a honeymoon. He's kind of a pragmatic NDP guy. He's still NDP, but not as nutty as some of them, like David Eby in BC. He's pretty low in support. Premier Smith is at 46%. Moe is at 50%. And Ford at 41%. So, yeah, the politicians are starting to slide a bit. Let's see, Poilievre on the federal front, calling on federal government to get out of the way of home building. And he had a 4-point housing plan from his party, he said. Let's see, removing the federal sales tax on homes up to $1.3 million. Not bad, that's a plus. Eliminating capital gains tax on reinvestments into home building. Again, you see, it's that two-faced thing from the government. They're saying we want to help everybody be housed, but they're taxing the crap out of you when you try to get into a house or do anything with it. So these are good things. Incentivizing municipalities to speed up permits and cut development charges. This is one of the ones where you get a little dicey. So this is the game, and Poilievre proposed this before, and the Liberals do it as well, where they say, we're going to transfer money to you, but only if you do this, or only if you do that. So even if the this and that are things I agree with, like cutting regulatory things and so on, I don't know if it's the federal government's role to be pulling those strings on the municipalities. Not to mention they leapfrog provincial authority when they do that. We do need the municipalities to cut the regulations and get this stuff done. But I get a little worried when you see federal politicians talking about doing it. Let's watch it. He says aligning immigration levels with housing and job availability to reduce pressure on services. That's a much bigger thing, of course, immigration in general. If you want the whole story, Jeremy Borg covered it at the Western Standard. Really well written up and everything. This is one of the things coming through federal politics as we get towards the federal session coming in. RCMP looks like they're going to be facing a $98 million budget cut. There's a memo leaked. That's out there in the Standard as well. Another reason for these provinces to start expanding your provincial police forces, your sheriffs, your municipal forces, just as we are in Alberta, just as Premier Smith has been doing. Of course, all of the legacy media calls her crazy, says it's a separatist thing, things like that. No, we got the RCMP are falling apart. The RCMP have already said they're going to start pulling away from municipal policing. Anyways, guys, all the warning signs are there, not just for Alberta. Get away from the RCMP. I think it's going to get finally scaled into just a little federal force, but it's getting smaller and smaller and less effective for local policing. Speaking of policing, Barrie, Ontario Mayor Alex Nuttall has declared a state of emergency there because of the amount of encampments and junkies and property damage and crime with the opioid crisis there. I guess this is what they're down to. There's either denial, like we had in Calgary for so long from Gondek, though now she's suddenly strong on crime. It happens in elections years, doesn't it? Or letting it go to the point where you got to declare a state of emergency. There's no easy way to deal with this one, guys. We need massive inpatient treatment centers. We really do. One thing even the left-wing NDP in BC have realized, they're talking about having to take addicts off the street against their will sometimes because they're going to hurt themselves or others. They say the Mental Health Act already covers that for people, guys. When you're that addicted, that should be covered under the Mental Health Act. But either way, get them in, get them treated, because it's obviously not going to fix itself sitting in the streets. Interesting to watch the smaller cities like Barrie, Ontario, and that's starting to really get smoked and hit with that too. The Holy Grail, electric vehicles, Canada. The numbers are in from StatsCan. Yeah. So in 2025, in the second quarter, registrations for battery electric vehicles have dropped 39%. The sales for those crappy things are crashing. And still, Mark Carney won't get rid of the EV mandates, where it's going to illegalize gas-powered vehicles in the future. Not too long from now anymore, guys. It's coming up fast. They put a pause on the 2026 one because they were suddenly going to be fining car dealerships for not selling 20% of their vehicles being electric. They're up the creek. He's going to throw out those mandates eventually. But the thing is, as long as he dithers on it, and boy, he likes dithering, it screws the economy, it screws the markets, it screws the dealerships, it screws the consumers. Have some clarity. These mandates are unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Let's just get rid of the bloody mandates. Man, he's making that a hill to die on, isn't he? Natural Resources Canada. I mean, our government thinks saying the transition to battery-powered vehicles will cost up to $300 billion. Guys, we're entering a recession already. Why on earth do we go further with this? I wonder who's invested in electric vehicles, Let's see. Meanwhile, though, yeah, Ottawa pressed the brakes, but BC, they've still got their own. So they feel 26% of all the vehicles starting in 2026. So a couple of months from now, 26% of all new vehicle sales in their province are going to have to be electric. Maybe you should invest in auto dealerships on the Alberta side of the BC border and sell them just over here, because BC is screwed. And that requirement's going to jump to 90% by 2030. 4 more years, and 90% of vehicles in BC are supposed to be electric. It's insane. It's insane. Do you want to drive the over Rogers Pass and that highway in wintertime in an electric vehicle? Of course you don't. That's why they don't sell. BC is not all Lower Mainland, though their government pretends to be. But boy, this electric vehicle thing, we're really crunching our country over it. Again, spending. Mark Carney announced his $5 billion strategic response fund. He's talking about an austerity budget with investment. In other words, he's going to spend money while pretending not to spend money. $5 billion more laid out yesterday. $450 through labor market development agreements to retrain workers. $50 million with eCampus Ontario. I don't know. We're looking into an ugly pattern. Hopefully some clarity comes from some things from this federal government this fall, because if Mr. Dithers keeps just trying to play both sides of the tracks, Canada is in such a catastrophic position. It's brutal. But again, our legacy media is going to keep claiming he's a genius. International news. It's interesting to watch, and the CTV coverage of it, CBC coverage of it. Israel, went and launched a strike in Qatar because all the leaders of Hamas were gathered in a spot, and they killed a whole bunch of them. And the CBC headline says the Israeli attack on Qatar sparked international outrage. International outrage. And Qatar condemned it as cowardly. It's on Hamas headquarters. Guys, it's a war. They scream about Israel going into Gaza to try and free the hostages that were stolen, that are being raped and starved, and all those wonderful things that Hamas does. We're not talking about Gazans in general. We're talking about Hamas, an outright terrorist group. If a country can't target the leaders of a terrorist group that has attacked their people, raided a music festival, raped young women, murdered 1,000 and some people, how on earth is a country supposed to defend itself at all, in any sort of way? So no, a big white tear of sympathy runs down my leg for the Hamas leadership that a whole whack of them got killed in Qatar. That was a surgical airstrike. It set Hamas back. It's a good thing, no matter what the CBC says to you. Either way, these are the top things I see in the news today. At this point, we'll see what unravels tomorrow. I'll give another update. Will come out at about this time.